Ladies and gentlemen, let's get one thing clear from the start. Success isn't about luck. It's about preparation meeting opportunity, and preparation that comes from skill. So today, I want to show you how to groom your skills not someday, not when you're ready, but right now, by using 5 powerful tools that anyone can access. Number 1, intentional practice beats natural talent. I've seen it over and over. The people who practice deliberately, who put in the hours with purpose and focus, outperform the ones who are just naturally good. You want to be a world-class communicator, practice every single day, record yourself, watch it, cringe, then do it again. That's how excellence is built, not by wishing, but by working. Number 2, feedback is a gift, not a criticism. If you want to grow, you have to stop being emotionally attached to being right. Ask for feedback from your boss, your team, your clients, and when they give it to you, even when it stings, say thank you. Because that is insight you didn't have before. That's an edge over the old version of you. You cannot grow in an echo chamber. Number 3, surround yourself with doers, not talkers. Who's in your circle? Are you around people who push you to level up, or people who make excuses for staying the same? Your environment will either elevate you or suffocate you. Be in rooms where you're the least experienced person. It forces you to rise. Greatness is contagious, but so is mediocrity. Choose wisely. Number 4, invest in micro. Learning daily. You don't need a 3-hour seminar to improve. You need 10 minutes of focused input, a podcast on your drive, a YouTube masterclass, a chapter before bed. That's it. Compound that over 365 days and you will not recognize yourself in a year. Learning is not an event, it's a lifestyle. Be addicted to improvement. In number 5, track what you train. What gets measured gets improved. Want to get better at public speaking? Track how many times you practice this month. Want to become a better leader? Track your one-on-ones, your team results, your decision-making speed. If you can't measure it, you can't master it. Growth without accountability is just a wish. So here's the deal, stop waiting. Stop hoping that your skills will magically improve. Groom them, sharpen them. Own them, because when you build yourself, you build your future. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to stop consuming and start evolving. Use these 5 things. Watch your confidence rise. Watch your opportunities multiply. And most importantly, watch who you become. Most people believe talent is the key to success. They think some people are just born with it, and others have to accept average. But the truth is, natural talent may open the door, but it won't keep you in the room. What keeps you in the room is intentional practice. The kind of focused, consistent effort that isn't glamorous, isn't always fun, and definitely doesn't come with applause. But that's where mastery lies. Intentional practice beats natural talent every time because it's repeatable, reliable, and completely within your control. Imagine someone who wants to become a better speaker. They have some talent, they are charismatic, maybe quick-witted, and can hold a room for a few minutes. But they don't prepare, they don't study their audience, they don't analyze their recordings, they wing it. On the other hand, someone else might be terrified of public speaking. They stammer, they get nervous. But they show up every day, they rehearse, they record themselves, they watch the tape, they tweak their pauses, their tone, their eye contact. Fast forward 1 year. Who do you think is the more effective speaker? It's not even close. The one who practiced intentionally now owns the stage. Talent gave one person a head start, but discipline let the other finish the race stronger. Intentional practice means you don't just repeat the same thing over and over again. You break it down, you find what's not working, and you fix it. That's what world-class performers do. Whether it's in business, music, athletics, or leadership, the best don't practice until they get it right. They practice until they can't get it wrong. And that happens by narrowing in on the parts that are broken, the pieces that feel awkward, the parts that require the most effort. If you're trying to grow your skill set, your time should be spent at the edge of your comfort zone, not where it's easy, but where you struggle. That's where growth lives. Think about athletes. A professional basketball player doesn't just shoot free throws until they feel tired. They shoot with intention. They focus on form, foot placement, rhythm, consistency. They measure, they refine. That same mindset must be applied to your skill development. Are you practicing leadership with intention? Are you holding meetings that are structured and purposeful? Or are you just talking at your team and hoping they get inspired? Are you working on your craft, the thing you say you're building your business around, with intention, or are you coasting on the same methods that haven't pushed you in months? What separates good from great is that extra layer of focus. Good is natural, great is trained. Intentional practice forces you to stay alert. You aren't just checking boxes. You're watching, analyzing, tracking your improvement. You know exactly what you're working on and why. And that type of discipline does more than improve your skills. It builds your confidence. Because when you know you've put in the work, when you've drilled it 100 times under pressure, you walk into every situation knowing you're prepared. Confidence doesn't come from affirmations, it comes from execution. People often avoid intentional practice because it's uncomfortable, it highlights your weaknesses, it requires honesty, but that discomfort is the price of progress. You cannot elevate your skill level while protecting your ego. You have to be okay being bad at something long enough to become excellent. That's why talent can be dangerous. It tricks people into believing they've arrived, so they stop stretching. But those who understand the value of practice keep improving long after the talented ones plateau. In a fast, moving world like ours, where innovation and disruption are constant, being talented isn't enough. The people who rise are the ones who evolve, and evolution requires deliberate, targeted, consistent action. It means showing up even when it's boring. It means asking the hard questions. What am I not good at yet? What do I avoid? What am I doing wrong that no one's telling me? And then you go fix it. Over and over again. Intentional practice gives you ownership over your growth. You don't have to wait for a course or a boss or a lucky break. You create your own trajectory. That's powerful. It's not just about becoming skilled, it's about becoming dependable, respected, unstoppable. You become the person others turn to because they know you've trained for the moment. They know you're not guessing, and when you walk into that boardroom, that pitch meeting, that negotiation, you walk in ready. No matter your industry, your role, or your goals, intentional practice is the foundation of mastery. It eliminates excuses, it replaces guesswork with confidence, and it transforms ordinary people into high performers. So don't rely on talent, build your skill set with intention, work the reps, track the progress. Stretch your limits. You'll soon discover that consistency and focus will outperform natural ability, and the rewards will reflect that. ChatGPT said, "Feedback is something most people avoid. It feels uncomfortable." It feels personal, but the truth is, feedback is one of the most powerful tools for growth if you learn how to receive it the right way. Most people hear feedback and immediately go on defense. They feel judged. They feel like they are being attacked, but that mindset blocks progress. If you want to become exceptional at anything, you need to shift your perspective. Feedback is not an insult, it's not an attack. It's a gift, a shortcut to excellence handed to you by someone who sees what you don't. When you can reframe it like that, you stop fearing it and start craving it. The reason feedback stings is because it strikes at our identity. If you think of yourself as good at communicating, and someone says your delivery lacked clarity, it feels like they're saying you're not who you believe you are, but you have to learn to separate your work from your worth. Feedback isn't a reflection of your value as a person. It's a reflection of the results you're currently producing. And if you care more about growing than being right, you'll learn to welcome it. Growth begins the moment you stop defending your past decisions and start listening to improve your future ones. The people who grow the fastest are the ones who ask for feedback consistently, not just during formal evaluations or performance reviews, but in real time from the people around them. After a meeting, they ask, "What's one thing I could have done better?" After a presentation, they say, "Was my message clear?" They don't wait for praise, they seek refinement, because they know that every piece of honest feedback is a mirror that shows them what they couldn't see alone. It's not weakness to ask, it's strength, it's confidence in action. Here's what separates high performers from the average. They don't take feedback personally, they take it professionally, they see it as data. Just like an athlete watches film after a game, looking for flaws in their footwork or timing, you need to watch your own performance and listen to what others are noticing. That data is gold, and the more often you receive it, the less sensitive you become. You build resilience. You learn to listen without ego. That doesn't mean every piece of feedback is valid or useful, but it all becomes informative. It all adds to your awareness. One of the biggest mistakes people make is only listening to feedback from those above them. But some of the most valuable feedback comes from your peers, your clients, and even your direct reports. These are the people who experience your leadership, your communication, your decisions firsthand. If you want to lead a team effectively, you better be asking them regularly, "What's something I could be doing better as your leader?" That one question can open the door to transformation, but only if you listen with humility and act on what you hear. The truth is, you already know some of your weaknesses. You're just hoping no one brings them up. But real growth comes when someone does bring them up, and instead of shrinking, you lean in. That's how you get better. You take the sting and turn it into strength. If you can train yourself to respond to feedback with curiosity instead of defensiveness, you become unstoppable. You stop plateauing. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You move forward with speed. Sometimes the most helpful feedback is the most uncomfortable to hear. That's why many people avoid it. They're not ready to face the truth. But here's the reality. Ignoring feedback doesn't protect your growth, it delays it. The longer you go without knowing how you're showing up, the longer it takes to improve. People may stop telling you the truth to protect your feelings, but that silence becomes a barrier to your success. You should be more afraid of polite silence than of hard truth. When someone gives you feedback, thank them always, even if it's harsh, even if you don't agree. Why? Because they took the time to be honest. Because honesty is rare. Because you now have something new to evaluate, to reflect on, to use. Don't waste it. You can always decide what to implement and what to discard later, but first receive it fully. Write it down, sit with it, let it challenge you. If you're leading a team or running a business, your relationship with feedback will determine your ceiling. Leaders who can't handle feedback create cultures of fear and silence. But leaders who embrace feedback build trust, loyalty, and innovation. They grow because their people feel safe to speak the truth, and that truth fuels performance. So if you want your team to grow, model it. Be the first one to ask, to receive, and to implement. Make feedback a normal part of the culture, not a rare event triggered by mistakes. You cannot elevate if you avoid evaluation. Feedback shines a light on your blind spots. It gives you the leverage to change faster, and in a competitive world, speed matters. You don't have time to stay the same, so be bold, invite the critique, embrace the discomfort, train yourself to hear what others run from. Because when feedback becomes your fuel, growth is no longer accidental, it's inevitable. If you want to groom your skills and accelerate your growth, you have to be intentional about who you allow into your space. Your environment is not neutral. It's either pushing you forward or holding you back, and the biggest influence in that environment is people. The truth is, your results are a reflection of the standards around you. If you spend time with people who talk more than they do, who make excuses instead of taking action, who say they want success but don't live like it, then eventually you will start lowering your standards too. That's not negativity, that's psychology. Human beings absorb the norms of their environment. So if you're serious about developing your skills, you need to surround yourself with doers, not talkers. Doers are people who take action even when it's hard. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't sit around theorizing. They move, they build, they test, and yes, they fail, but then they try again. These are the people who will stretch you, because when you're around doers, you don't want to be the one who shows up unprepared. You don't want to be the one who says, "I'll try," when everyone else is already executing. Being in proximity to people who act pulls something out of you. It demands that you rise. It forces you to develop discipline, resilience, and speed. Those are skills you can't read about. You learn them by watching and doing with others who live that way. The opposite of this is being around people who just talk. They talk about their ideas, they talk about their goals, they talk about what they're going to do next year, but you check back in 6 months later and nothing has changed. They're still planning, still waiting, still blaming circumstances. Being around this kind of energy is dangerous, not because these people are bad, but because their habits are contagious. Their comfort becomes your comfort. Their delays justify your own. Their mediocrity makes your excuses sound reasonable, and before you know it, you've lost momentum without even realizing it. When you intentionally place yourself in the company of doers, everything shifts. Your language changes, your time gets more valuable, your tolerance for excuses drops, because you're watching real progress happen right in front of you. You see what's possible when people focus. You understand what it looks like to execute daily, not just dream occasionally. And that awareness pushes you. It challenges you to ask, am I showing up the way I say I want to? That question alone can elevate your entire life. One of the best decisions you can make is to audit your circle. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they building, growing, improving? Are they learning new skills, chasing new goals, leveling up consistently? Or are they spinning in circles, repeating the same patterns year after year? Because whether you realize it or not, that circle is shaping your future. You may think you're immune, but no one is. Energy rubs off, mindsets transfer. So if you want a breakthrough, sometimes the first step isn't learning a new skill, it's getting in a new room. Sometimes that means being uncomfortable. It means joining groups where you're not the most experienced person in the room. It means putting yourself in situations where you feel stretched, challenged, maybe even intimidated. That's good. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens in performance environments where excellence is expected, not applauded, where progress is normal, not exceptional. You need to feel like you have to catch up, not to compete with others, but to become your best. That sense of urgency fuels growth. If you're the smartest, most successful, most driven person in your circle, it's time to upgrade your circle. Because when no one around you is pushing you to go further, you start coasting. And coasting kills potential. High-level skill development requires pressure, the good kind of pressure, the kind that says, let's go, we don't wait, we move, that comes from proximity to the right people. And it doesn't happen by accident. You have to seek it out. Look for mentors, look for peers who are a few steps ahead of you. Look for communities that operate at a higher standard. These are the people who will challenge your thinking. They won't let you settle. They'll tell you the truth, they'll share their strategies, they'll call you out, and they'll also support you, because doers respect other doers. They know the grind, they want to see others win. But they won't coddle you. They'll push you to earn it, and that's exactly what you need. Skill development is not just about technique, it's about mindset. And your mindset is shaped by who you spend time with. Be around people who take initiative, who solve problems, who don't complain but create. That kind of energy shifts your baseline. Suddenly, doing more isn't overwhelming, it's expected. Playing bigger doesn't feel risky, it feels necessary. The right circle raises your standards before your results even show up. So if you're serious about becoming the best at what you do, if you want to build skills that set you apart, then surround yourself with people who don't just talk about growth, they live it. Every day, and when you do, your skill set, your confidence, and your opportunities will grow faster than you ever imagined. Most people believe that to grow their skills, they need to set aside massive amounts of time, hours of study, full-day workshops, weekend boot camps. But the truth is, real skill development doesn't depend on time, it depends on consistency, and that's where micro-learning becomes a game changer. Micro-learning is the practice of intentionally consuming short, focused bursts of information daily. It's the 5-minute podcast on leadership while you're brushing your teeth. It's the 10-minute chapter before bed. It's the 2-minute note you write after a meeting to reflect on what went well and what didn't. These moments seem small, but they compound, and over time they turn into sharp skills, confident execution, and exponential growth. People underestimate what they can do in 10 minutes. They think if they don't have a full hour, it's not worth it. But the best performers in the world don't waste the small windows of time, they optimize them. They understand that growth isn't about the length of the session, it's about the focus of the effort. You could spend 2 hours scrolling through meaningless content, or you could spend 10 focused minutes learning one new communication strategy that elevates your performance for the entire week. It's not about having more time, it's about using the time you already have with purpose. The beauty of micro-learning is that it fits into your real life. You don't need to wait for the right time to learn. You create learning moments in between the chaos, in the car, while making coffee, during lunch, and because it's small, your brain stays engaged. You retain more because you're not overwhelmed. Think about how often you've sat through a long workshop, took 5 pages of notes, and then implemented none of it. That's because volume doesn't equal impact. Microlearning gives you just enough to absorb, apply, and repeat. And that's how mastery is built, not from information overload, but from intentional repetition. You have to stop thinking of learning as something separate from your day. Learning isn't an event, it's a habit, and when it becomes a habit, you build momentum. You start to see your weaknesses more clearly, and you're armed with tools to improve them in real time. Let's say you're trying to become a better leader. Instead of blocking off 4 hours on a Sunday to read a leadership book, what if you committed to reading 5 pages every day? That adds up to over 150 pages a month. That's a book a month, 12 books a year, without ever changing your schedule. That's the power of micro-consistency. Micro-learning also helps you stay relevant. The business world evolves fast, technology changes. Markets shift. The strategies that worked last year might not work next quarter. If you're only learning once or twice a year, you're falling behind. But if you're consuming small doses of fresh, targeted knowledge every single day, you're always ahead of the curve. You walk into meetings with sharper insights, you adapt faster, you contribute more. That kind of presence builds trust and influence, and those are both earned through competency, not personality. What's most important is that you stop waiting for a learning season. You don't need to take a break from life to grow. Your life is the training ground. Every conversation, every challenge, every decision is a chance to refine your skills. If you're paying attention, micro-learning keeps your mind active and aware. It makes you more observant, more thoughtful, and it forces you to stay honest about your gaps, because you're exposing yourself to new ideas every day. And this isn't just about consuming content, it's also about reflection. One of the most powerful forms of micro-learning is the act of pausing and asking yourself, what did I learn today? That question alone forces growth. It makes you evaluate your actions, your mindset, your decisions. And it doesn't take more than 2 minutes. But if you do that every day, you're creating a system of self-awareness and adjustment that compounds faster than anything you could learn in a seminar. In a world full of distractions, those who learn how to use micro moments will always outpace those who don't, because it's not just about having more knowledge, it's about having it when you need it, and that only happens when learning is integrated into your daily rhythm. You don't wait until something breaks to start learning how to fix it. You build the tools before you need them, and then, when the pressure hits, you're ready. Not because you're lucky, but because you prepared in small, intentional ways. So whether you want to improve your leadership, your speaking, your confidence, your execution, or your mindset, it doesn't require a total life overhaul. It requires one thing: consistency in small doses. Commit to 10 minutes. Do it daily, and watch how quickly you begin to separate yourself from the crowd. Not because you worked harder, but because you worked smarter with intention and discipline. That's the edge. That's the difference, and that's what turns potential into results. Progress without tracking is like driving with your eyes closed. You might be moving, but you have no idea if you're heading in the right direction. When it comes to developing your skills, improving your performance, or mastering your craft, you can't just rely on how you feel. You have to track what you train. You have to measure what matters, because what gets measured gets improved, and what doesn't get measured eventually gets ignored. It's easy to say, I'm working hard, or I'm getting better, but unless you have tangible data, those are just stories you tell yourself. The path to mastery requires clarity, and clarity comes through measurement. Think about someone trying to get stronger in the gym. They don't walk in and randomly lift whatever they feel like. They track the weight, the reps, the sets, the rest time. They know exactly what they did last week and exactly what they need to do this week to beat it. That's how strength is built, through consistent, measurable effort. The same principle applies to your business, your communication, your leadership, your mindset. If you want to grow, you need numbers. You need timelines. You need visibility. Most people don't track their progress because they're afraid of what they'll see. They don't want to confront the gap between where they are and where they want to be. But that gap is not a weakness, it's a gift. It shows you what to work on, it gives you a direction, and it keeps you honest. When you track your inputs, your habits, your time, your energy, you begin to understand your patterns. You see where you're consistent and where you're slipping. You can't argue with data. That's why tracking is powerful. It cuts through the noise of excuses and brings truth to the surface. Let's say you want to improve your public speaking. You could tell yourself, I'm working on it, and feel good, or you could track how many times you've practiced this month, how many minutes you've rehearsed, how many recordings you've reviewed, and how many times you've gotten feedback. That tells a very different story because effort is good, but effort without tracking can trick you. You feel like you're improving because you're busy, but busyness is not the same as effectiveness. When you start measuring, you shift from vague effort to strategic improvement. Tracking also keeps you motivated. It creates momentum. Every time you check off a task, beat a previous number, or see visual proof of progress, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. You start associating improvement with reward. It's no longer a grind. It becomes a game. You want to beat your own numbers. You want to stay consistent. And when you miss a day or fall short, it's no longer invisible. It shows up in your data. That visibility creates accountability, and accountability is one of the most powerful drivers of growth. If you're in a leadership role, tracking becomes even more critical. You can't just tell your team to improve. You have to define what improvement looks like and then measure it. Are you tracking on one's team performance metrics, response times, completion rates, culture indicators? If not, you're leading by intuition instead of intention. And while intuition is valuable, it's not scalable. Data is when your team sees that you track what matters, they take those things seriously. It creates alignment, it eliminates confusion, and it builds a culture of ownership. The people who rise the fastest in any industry are the ones who treat their growth like a business. They don't guess, they don't assume, they measure. They know how many books they've read this year. They know how many keynotes they've delivered. They know how many pitches they've closed. They track their habits, their learning, their practice, their outputs. They are not obsessed with being perfect. They are obsessed with getting better, and they know that better starts with knowing where they are now. Tracking also gives you perspective. Sometimes you feel like you're not improving, but when you look back at the numbers, you realize just how far you've come. Maybe your first few meetings were a mess. Maybe your first 5 clients didn't convert. But you stayed consistent. You adjusted, you grew, and now your numbers tell a new story. That's the value of long-term tracking. It creates a visible record of your evolution. It's proof that you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. And that proof fuels belief. You don't need a fancy system to start tracking. It can be a notebook, a spreadsheet, an app. What matters is that you start. Pick the 1 or 2 skills that matter most to your future and create a daily or weekly metric to measure them. Keep it simple, keep it visible, and review it often. Let that data drive your decisions. Let it inform your priorities. Let it tell you the truth about your effort, your growth, your follow-through. Because here's the truth. People who don't track make emotional decisions. They chase motivation. They bounce between strategies. But people who do track make data-driven decisions. They stay focused. They double down on what's working and fix what's not. That's what makes them consistent. That's what makes them skilled. That's what makes them excellent. So if you're serious about grooming your skills, don't just train track. Let the numbers guide your growth. Let the visibility fuel your discipline, and watch how quickly you start moving from potential to performance.